Today, the gears of global trade just locked up in mid-2025. Canada slammed big tech with a digital tax bombshell, and Trump, he exploded, killing trade talks and threatening tariffs that could wreck EV supply chains from Ontario to Ohio. But just as tensions hit red line, Carney hit the brakes. What really happened behind the scenes? How close did we come to an economic pileup involving aluminum and auto parts? Buckle in, because this digital tax showdown is about to go full throttle. Carney's first move, Bill C-96 and the digital power play. In mid-2025, Prime Minister Mark Carney launched Bill C-96, a 3% digital services tax targeting tech giants like Amazon, Apple, Google, and Meta. Any firm earning over 20 million CAD in Canada or 750 million euros globally was on the hook. But this wasn't just about revenue, it was about digital sovereignty. The Goal Fund, a national AI innovation initiative, and reduce reliance on US-based platforms like AWS and Azure, projected to raise 4.1 billion CAD in its first year. The bill aimed to boost domestic research hubs like Montreal Waterloo, but Canada bypassed the still pending OECD global tax framework, triggering backlash. Washington and US tech lobbies called it discriminatory and retroactive, especially since payments would date back to 2022. Tech companies warned of service cuts, higher ad rates for Canadian SMEs, and data restrictions for Canadians. It was a bold stand against big tech. For Trump, it was a provocation, one that would spark an economic clash across borders. But what began as a digital sovereignty play quickly escalated into something far more aggressive. Enter the Trump tariff machine. Trump's economic body slammed tariffs and trade threats. When Trump's trade radar lit up, so did his rhetoric, declaring Bill C-96 a hostile act against American innovation. He pulled the plug on USMCA negotiations and pushed for retaliatory tariffs under Section 301. And this time, he didn't just target software. He went straight for the hardware, the aluminum, nickel, and 5G components essential to modern EVs and smart infrastructure. Canada exports nearly $18 billion in these materials annually. Suddenly, Ontario's aluminum foundries and Quebec's nickel mines were staring down tariffs of up to 50%. That hit close to home. Auto manufacturers relying on lightweight aluminum frames and nickel-rich EV battery casings faced a projected 7% cost spike. The Michigan-Ontario corridor, home to the densest cluster of vehicle assembly plants in North America, began bracing for gridlock. But make no mistake, this was also a campaign maneuver. Trump rallied voters in key battlegrounds like Pennsylvania and Michigan, warning of job losses and rising EV prices. Tech stocks nosedived, shedding $98 billion in a day. Even auto suppliers linked to Canadian facilities saw their valuation slide. For Trump, it was textbook escalate fast, hold the line and make your rival blink before we downshift further. Make sure to smash that like and subscribe button. It helps us reach more enthusiasts and keeps you looped in on every major update. Now let's shift gears into how diplomacy kicked in behind the smoke and screeching brakes. Economic shockwaves and secret diplomacy. By early July, market jitters turned into full-on whiplash. Amazon projected a 1.1 billion CAD hit from the tax. Alphabet flagged a 540 million CAD liability. Even U.S. defense giants felt the squeeze as Ottawa hinted at canceling fighter jet contracts in favor of European options like the Saab Gripen. Carney fired back with a 50% tariff on U.S. steel imports above quota, which the Bank of Canada warned could slice GDP growth and inflate prices into 2026. Meanwhile, Canadian industries were bleeding 4.5 billion CAD in projected losses for automakers, 1.9 billion for metals, and over $1 billion for forestry. Under mounting domestic pressure, Carney began to feel the burn. Political opponents slammed him for risking Canada's economic engine. Business leaders feared a prolonged trade freeze. It all came to a head in the quiet mountain air of kind of nastiest during G7 meetings behind closed doors. Trump issued a final warning: drop the tax or the trade doors stay shut. By the time tax collection was about to begin, Carney was already prepping for a dramatic U-turn, and just when it looked like a head-on collision was inevitable, Canada made a sharp turn. The sudden swerve Canada slams the brakes on Bill C-96. On June 30th, 2025, just hours before the digital tax was set to launch, Prime Minister Mark Carney pulled the plug. Bill C-96 was suspended, and Carney announced that trade talks with the U.S. would resume immediately. The move was framed as a step to protect national interests and stabilize North American commerce. President Trump quickly claimed victory, branding Canada's decision a win for U.S. strength and leverage over global digital tax models. Markets soared. The S&P hit record highs and aluminum stocks surged. Reactions were split. Business groups called it pragmatic, but critics accused Carney of backing down on a central campaign promise. The digital services tax was meant to assert sovereignty over big tech. Instead, Canada was seen as blinking under pressure. The suspension, however, lacked any formal agreement with a July 21st deadline approaching. Unresolved tensions over air defense contracts and data localization lingered. This was no resolution, just a temporary pause in an escalating conflict while Canada gained time. U.S. expectations for future concessions remained firmly in place, and if you think this was the end, the next chapter proves otherwise, because what's coming is bigger than a tax. Beyond the hood, tech taxes, tariffs, and a shifting global grid, the Canada-U.S. digital tax clash wasn't just about a 3% levy. It exposed the battle for control over digital policy data and innovation. While Canada aimed to assert digital sovereignty and tap big tech's profits, the U.S. forcefully defended its dominance, pushing back hard as the OECD struggled to finalize global tax rules. Canada's suspension of Bill C-96 preserved short-term trade ties, but critics say it weakened Ottawa's leverage, reinforcing the notion that digital reforms must go through Washington first. Still, it avoided damaging tariffs that could have hammered Canada's auto and tech sectors. This dispute signals a new era. Trade tensions are shifting from traditional goods to tech infrastructure, cloud semiconductors, encryption, even quantum computing. Carney's tax push cracked the door open. Trump's retaliation slammed it back. Even defense is now a bargaining chip. Canada's threat to reevaluate its F-35 deal spooked Washington, prompting senators to link defense spending to trade cooperation. As the July 21st deadline looms, questions remain. Will a new digital framework emerge? Or will this firestorm reignite in a future summit or election year? Either way, the road ahead is anything but smooth. And that brings us to the final lap in this showdown. Final verdict, Canada's pit stop or Trump's finish line. So who really won? Trump certainly scored the headline victory. Canada blinked, tech stocks bounced and tariffs were stalled. But Canada may have bought itself something more valuable: time to reframe its digital ambitions, time to build alliances, time to prepare for the next confrontation. With more horsepower under the hood, and let's be honest, this isn't the last lap, the real contest ahead. Who sets the rules for digital trade in the AI era? And who holds the keys to tomorrow's automotive and tech ecosystem? What do you think? Did Carney stall out? Or is Canada retooling for a smarter comeback? Should nations push for digital sovereignty even if it risks trade retaliation? And how will this standoff ripple through the auto industry and future EV supply chains? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear your take. And don't forget, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications to stay tuned for our next big breakdown on vehicle updates, tech shifts, and everything driving the future of mobility. You can now check out any of the videos on the screen. There's plenty more to explore.